Hello, I'm Kimberley Dondo, Digital Content Manager, and welcome to In Conversation With, the podcast series that delves into the world of financial services and brings you face to face with some of the most notable figures in the industry. Listen as we discuss topics that are currently facing the industry and hear from visionary CEOs to disruptive innovators as we bring you a diverse array of voices and perspectives. We'll explore the challenges they faced, the lessons they've learned, and the insights they have to share about the ever-evolving landscape of financial services. Hello and welcome to In Conversation With. I'm Kimberley Dondo, and in today's episode, I'm joined by Frederika Clay. So Fred, can you give us a bit of background into yourself and how you got started in financial services?
Yeah, of course. So yes, I'm Frederika Clay. Everybody calls me Fred. It's much easier, although it does get a little bit confusing. I've arrived at many meetings where they've expected a man, and I've turned up. So I launched my own business, F&O Wealth Management, only in September last year. So I'm about 8 months in now. And really happy, no regrets whatsoever. But it's been a journey to get here for sure. So I started my career in finance straight out of university. I was on a graduate scheme with Halifax Bank of Scotland. So I worked on unsecured personal loans at that time. And it was quite a traditional graduate scheme. So you did like 6 months in one area and rotated, but it was really good. It was because you got to see loads of different areas of a business. And at that point, I'd really never been in any big corporate business at all. So it was a great overview. But then came the merger with Lloyds Banking Group. So it was redundancy or relocation down to London. And my now husband was working with me at HBOS at that time. And so we both decided to relocate to London for the experience, which was great. Quite quickly after we arrived in London, we both moved on to different roles, and I moved across to Octopus Investments. Okay. I was product manager there for Octopus Portfolio Manager, which was like a risk-rated models kind of portfolio solution, which I absolutely loved it at Octopus. It was a great place to be. It was amazing energy. And it was at the time where the business was really growing. Yeah. So I'd come from Lloyds Banking Group, one of 176,000 employees, over to Octopus. And I think at that point, there was probably about 80 people. Okay. So it felt like a really exciting time. The founders were there on the floor, amongst everyone, but it was hard. It was long hours. It was a shock from my life in Chester, going down to London, the Northern Line to work every day. So yeah, it was a big shock, but definitely an amazing learning experience. And I stayed there for about 5 years. And honestly, it was fantastic for my career. When we decided to move back up north, Octopus at that point were not very flexible in terms of working. So there was no option to say, I want to move home. So I decided I was going to take a bit of a career break. And I put on LinkedIn, I'm leaving London. I've had a great time, blah, blah, blah. But then Keith Hare approached me. So Keith used to work for, I suppose, what was Aspect 8, now Benchmark. And he asked me to go and work with them. And basically what I did was I recruited new firms into the Best Practice Network. Okay. So I used to travel all over the country, and I'd work with different advisors who either wanted to join the network, or we had our own back office system called Enable, or our own platform called Fusion. So people would either join the network or take some of the tech. So I would go out and I would manage the onboarding. And that again was fantastic, and I grew that to then head up the project management team. And we were onboarding loads of firms, and we were, traveling all over, going in, and you'd get some really good oversight into the financial advice world, and you'd be training everyone, understanding all their day-to-day processes, and then advising them on how to make the work complement what they were doing. So it was, again, really fantastic. But the more I did it, the more I thought, I'm not a financial advisor. I'm going into these firms and saying, this is how you should run your business. Follow these processes. And I was so aware that, I wasn't a financial advisor. I hadn't even had any financial advice at that point, So because I was on the train all the time and in like random hotels on my own for like 3 nights a week, I started studying. So I started doing my diploma. And initially the plan was never to be a financial advisor. It was just to give me some confidence and feel like I could walk in that room and be like, I understand a bit,
Yeah, understand your customer base.
Yeah, definitely. So I started doing my diploma on my own with a textbook, which I would cart around in my wheelie case with me and my trusty highlighter. And then, the more I did, the more I fell in love with it. And so I got my diploma when I was pregnant with my first child. And everything just worked out really well for me at then Aspect 8, now Benchmark, in that when I was due to come back from maternity leave, they had bought a local book of business that they were looking to open a Chester office, and they were looking for advisors. And so within the same company, I switched across from the project management side of things into financial advice. And that's where I stayed for 7 years as an advisor, looking after that book of business. I went on from there, from doing my diploma. I got my chartered my charter status. I did my fellowship, and I also did my solo accreditation. So I went hard for all the exams because I just really felt like if you stop studying and then want to start again later on, it's going to be so much harder to get these books
harder to pick up.
Yeah, especially I've got 2 children now, and they are young and demanding, and so I was in that kind of flow of, after I put them to bed, get the books out, study for a couple of hours, and that was my life for such a long time. So 7 years as an advisor at Benchmark, and then from last September made the move to my own firm. Which brings us to today. But I really, if you told me I'd end up here, 10 years ago, it would have been a surprise. It really never was the grand plan, but I'm just so pleased with it. I genuinely am so happy. What the old saying, isn't it? Love what you do and you won't work a day in your life. But it's true, man. It's really true.
And we got connected through Haley at the Verve Foundation. So I believe you were in the advisor incubator. What was that process like for you? Was that at the beginning stages where you were like, I think this is time for me to set up my own firm. I have enough experience, so I want to go out on this on my own?
Yeah. So honestly, it all happened quite quickly with Haley, and I didn't know as much as I wish I had known because there's loads of different options. So Haley does an incubator, which is if you are just thinking about setting up on your own. And then one if you're newly and you've just set up on your own, and then one, and she'll tell me off because I can't remember all the different names of them. And then the last one is called Grow, I think, which is where you've had a firm for a little while and you're looking at growing that. And so I had met another advisor at my network kind of annual conference, and I'd been chatting away to him kind of, because at that point, I think I'd only been live with my firm for a month, and he was like, you really need to get to know Haley and get on this incubator. And I was like, okay. So I reached out to Haley, and she was like, we've got a space and it's starting really quickly, so let's have an interview like next week. And then it started the next week after that. So I didn't have a lot of time to like research, what the alternatives were or anything like that. But she put me onto the incubator for the new firms that had just launched, and it was fantastic. Such a broad topic range, and really introduced me to loads of different concepts. I mean, so much that I'd scribble away notes, and some of them I'll have to go back to in the future, because obviously I'm still trying to run the business as well as doing everything else. But she introduces you to loads of different product providers, really great compliance overview, loads of different services that, should you need them, the introduction's already been made, and what I think the biggest thing about the Verve for me, and I think most of my peers would agree that have been through it, is the network. So you're put together, I think there was 12 people in our kind of group, and everyone's in a really similar position, and the thing that really stands out for me about what the work that Hayley's doing is that everybody is just so open and just wants to help each other. There's no competition, and it's so eye-opening to just be like, oh, this is me. And, even if it's a stupid question, or even if it's something that you might feel a bit embarrassed about, everyone's like, no stupid questions, just get it all out there. And everyone's really supportive.
Yeah.
So really helpful.
I also wondered, what made you think, I want to strike out on my own. I want to have my own firm. Because I'm sure you must have got comfortable in that 7 years. Was it that now I'm too comfortable, I need to shake it up?
So a few things, I suppose. I'd studied for so long. I mean, I love a textbook. I promise you that.
I was going to say those textbooks I think I looked at the RO6, and it took me back to when I was doing my undergrad in biomedical sciences. Oh, wow. And I was like, I don't want to go. I could do that. I don't want to go back to that. That was like a decade ago. I cannot go back to that. So I don't know how you pick that up again.
Oh no, when I got my chartership, I put a picture on my LinkedIn, and there's a stack of textbooks, and it's like so high, and I'm like peering over it like I did it, so yeah, some serious textbooks. I think one of the things was I'd studied for so long, but for so many years to tick off all the things that I'd really wanted to do. So diploma, get chartered, get my fellowship, do my SOLA accreditation. And me and the family were really lucky that we went away for Christmas a couple of years ago. So it wasn't last Christmas, it was the Christmas before. And I had a rare moment on the beach where my husband had taken the two children, and I was lay on a sun lounger on the beach on Boxing Day, something like that. And it was just beautiful. And I was like, I know, I should disrupt this piece. And so at that moment, I started to think, I'm not studying anymore, and I've been studying for so long. Like, it feels like I've got all this time. I really don't, but I felt like I had all of this renewed energy at that point. What's next? What am I going to do next? Where I was at Benchmark, they'd been bought out by Schroders, and it just turned into a really big firm. When I first joined them 10 years ago, it was small. There was probably only about 40 people there. And again, it was an amazing place to be. So Ian Cook was the CEO, and he was, had a massive impact on my career as a person. He, if he didn't like something in the industry, he'd build his own version of it and make it work, and I just thought, what an amazing person to be around. But Ian sold the business, and the business was just getting bigger and bigger. And I suppose, especially since I moved into financial advice, it's almost like you were kind of running your own business anyway, because you had your own book of clients, and you were out and about with your support team kind of there if you need them. So it was feeling like I was kind of semi doing my own thing, and I think the business just felt very different to what it was. And I've been striving my whole career from that Lloyds Banking Group, one of 176,000, to really be one of a smaller number, to seeing an impact, to be able to say, I'm going to make this decision, and it's on me to make that decision, and really just get the benefit from it, and I just felt like with the Schroders buying Benchmark, it was going to another big corporate firm, and they're going to do great things, I'm sure they are, but for me, the underlying values of my firm is the client, is taking care of the client, being super client focused, and being able to make those decisions that impact them for the best. And I felt like I wasn't able to do that anymore. I felt like there was lots of structure in Benchmark to make these decisions for you, to tell you the most efficient way of running the business, and for me it was important that I had that opportunity. And another thing is that my whole family are entrepreneurs. My husband as well. So I've grown up with, mum, dad, stepdad, all work for themselves. And then I am the youngest of 5 children. And pretty much everyone has either had a phase of working for themselves or is currently working for themselves. And then my husband, when we left London, we set up our property development business. So he runs that. And so it's really empowering to have full flexibility of, making all the decisions, knowing that you rise or fall on yourself, really.
Yeah.
I think it felt like an itch that I had to scratch, because I think if I'd left it and just thought, oh, it would be nice to do it, would I regret it 5, 10, 20 years down the line and be like, I should have done it. I could have done it. So, it's tough. It's a massive decision to make. But I feel like it was the right one for me.
I think when you do have entrepreneurs around you or people who are self-employed around you, it is much less daunting because you've seen it happen. And I think most of the time for people who it's very scary for is people they've never seen an example of that in their lives, so they don't even know where to start. But then also having like support from something like the Verve Foundation must also help.
Massively. Yeah. And I feel like Hayley, still now, I'll just send her the most random question and she'll connect me to somebody that can answer it, whether that's another Incubee or a provider that she's worked with, or, like yesterday, I had a call with PlannerPal. So they're doing some really great AI in the industry. And she made that introduction for me. And it just, honestly, it takes so much stress off you.
Yeah.
Because as kind of having been now a business owner, you just feel like you've got so much to juggle all the time, running the business, doing the business. If you don't write any business, then you're not going to make any money. And then you're like, oh God, all of these other things. What's the answer to this question? What's the answer to that question? Yeah. Hayley's there and she's got so much knowledge and a fantastic network.
Yeah. I actually don't know how that lady has time. She's everywhere. She is everywhere and also so available. But I know that is an aspect of the incubator is also having mentors. So did you have mentors during your path, and did you find that helpful?
I did. I think for me, I've been really lucky in my career in that I've had some amazing mentors. I've worked with some absolutely incredible people. And so a fantastic mentor that I have is a lady called Jane Gow. She's local to me. She's a financial advisor. She's a woman. She's really well qualified. So for years, she's been my go-to. And so I've been really well supported. And she's got 4 amazing children, and most of them work for her in her business, and they are all so open with me, and they've been a massive help. But I've also had a mentor through the Verve group as well, and again, just great. Everyone is super open. We've had so many conversations about things that could be quite a taboo discussion, like how do you charge fees to your client? Some people, you think that they might be a little bit, guarded about that information, but those were some really powerful conversations with the mentor. And then one of the sessions on the Verve kind of agenda is actually to get all of the mentors onto a call. And it was just literally everyone ask any questions you have. And that session was brilliant because Hayley manages to get loads of different mentors to volunteer, and so they've got experience on HR, they've got experience of running the business, they've got experience of like a one-man band business or a really big business, and she tries to match you up to the most appropriate one. There's also some people doing financial coaching on there, so that session was really useful, and you could also then hear what the questions other people were asking as well.
And what are your aspirations for the future of your firm, and how has the incubator experience shaped your long-term vision?
I mean, that is a massive question. So
I'm not here to give easy questions. I'm sorry.
So like I said, so I'm 8 months in. I was an employed advisor at Benchmark, and so I'm subject to a 12-month restrictive covenant clause on my contract. So it's for the first year, it's all about, building my business from scratch, literally a blank piece of paper. And I've been really fortunate. I've been really busy. The referrals are coming in, and it's fantastic. And it feels even better than ever before, because it's like, oh my God, you chose me, and my me and my business, and that is massive. And so my focus is to get to 12 months, see how the business grows and evolves over time. This isn't a lifestyle business for me. This is something that I want to grow. I want to build a really strong business that helps people, underneath everything that I do. My values are about helping clients, and I just love people. I love, building up relationships. I love talking to people, getting to know them and helping them. And so I want to build a business that does exactly that. I think this industry is so massively complicated, and they keep changing it. I mean, you've only got to look at the big budget that we've had recently to look at all of the taxation changes and how clients are supposed to navigate that on top of their own, work and daily lives. Is just crazy. So I want to build a business. I want to recruit more people. I want to have more advisors. And what that looks like right now, I don't know. And I think one of the first sessions that we did with Hayley was our business plan.
Yeah.
And at first I was a bit like, oh, do I need to go to that? Because I've already done my business plan, really naively, because I mean, my business plan looks completely different to what it was when I first wrote it. The business just keeps on changing. Like, you just can't fully see it. But she gets you thinking about all these things, Hayley does, and gets you talking to the right people and into really good habits. We're not going to review our business plans every month, because we'd spend too much time, kind of on the admin of the business rather than actually doing anything. But putting in those fundamental structures of, making sure you've got an annual full review every 6 months, you go back and take a high level look at it. I really am so thankful for the Verve, for the support that they've given to us. But in terms of the business, watch this space, Kimberley.
Yeah,
is what I'll say.
that is still exciting. And finally, what advice would you give to other financial advisors who are contemplating starting out on their own and having their own firm?
So I think one of the hardest things I've found about starting out on my own is the shift from being employed and receiving your money in your bank every month.
Scary.
If you're lucky enough, you might get a bonus as well once a year and be able to treat the family to a holiday or whatever.
Yeah.
And then you go, okay, I'm going to give my notice. So, you work your 3 months notice or whatever it is. And then they stop paying you a salary.
That's scary.
So that's scary. So I'd say for me, it's about being, obviously we're all, we're financial advisors, and I expect the people that are going to be listening to this are also financial advisors or wanting to be. We spend so much time building beautiful financial plans for everybody else.
Yeah.
But I think just making sure that you've got enough contingency there for that shift from employed to self-employed. And then even when the money does come in, you look at it and you think, oh, that's amazing. But actually it's, you've still got to pay tax on it. It's not your money, it's the business money. So I think there's been a massive learning for me around that. But that aside, that's just a very small element. I absolutely love it, and I feel really empowered and really excited about the future. And I think, a really good friend of mine kept on saying when I was thinking about it, if you build it, Fred, they will come. And they are, And so I think, and going back to that, feeling like there's that itch you've got to scratch. I know personally for me, if I didn't try, I wouldn't be able to drop that. And so it depends, if you're that person that that feels like that is going to be there nagging at the back of your head, I think you just got to try. What's the worst that can happen? I think as an industry, they're always looking for financial advisors. I mean, I get so many LinkedIn requests from recruitment people. So the worst that happens is you try, you've saved enough money to, make sure your mortgage is paid for a year or however long. And if it doesn't work, you get a job and you know that you've tried.
Yeah.
So I would say go for it, guys.
Yeah, definitely. Well, it's actually crazy that no one's mentioned the financial aspect when I've asked that question before. But it is such a practical thing that maybe most people think it's obvious. But when you said it, I was like, maybe you should consider all those things.
I mean, I did consider it, and I've got savings and everything, and that's fine. But I think it was more the mental shift rather than the actual money. It's like, whoa, this is such a change.
It probably alters the way you spend, because you're like, I don't have that monthly salary coming in, so I can't splurge sometimes the way that I would in the past.
Definitely. My mom even said to me, I feel like you're spending differently, and so that was crazy that she'd even noticed. I don't know if my husband would agree, but yeah, definitely. It just make sure that you've kind of thought all that through. And I think that's the real big kind of hurdle. As long as you can afford to try it, everything else you can get around.
Yeah. Well, thank you for speaking with me today, Fred. This was a really great conversation.
No problem. Thanks so much for your time. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you for listening to In Conversation With. We do hope that you enjoyed it. Please do keep up to date with all our new releases via Podbean, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and everywhere else you get your podcasts from. You can also keep up to date with all our new content published on the Money Marketing website, as well as our print edition Money Marketing magazine. So make sure to subscribe. Follow us on Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram. See you next time.